Hello and welcome to the Get Real Football Experts Podcast, Fantasy Focus Edition. Today we're going to be going over our top 10 tight ends, and I am joined, obviously, to my right, Dave Crescenti.
Man, we're in a new studio today. Let's just say we're having some renovations over in the
Studio 33.
Yeah.
All right. All right, cool. So let's kick this underway. We're going to give our top tight ends, top 10. His tight end's a very thin position in fantasy this year. Obviously, Aaron Hernandez minus one more. Dave, give us your number 10 tight end for fantasy football this year.
Do you think it'd be wrong if like say you, because I would never do this, but like say we go through number 1 and 2, and then you're like number 3, Aaron Hernandez. Would that be a wrong thing to do?
I think that would be kind of too soon of a joke.
Yeah. I mean, maybe in 5 years. But.
Perhaps, maybe I don't know. Are OJ jokes already in style?
No, because he's still in jail.
Yeah, but that wasn't for murder though. It's because he stole some stuff from he stole his stuff back.
Okay, but it's his stuff. I don't get that.
he gave it to them, and then you know what? No, I'm not going to discuss O.J. Simpson. He doesn't deserve our time.
I like O.J. Simpson.
And I feel like everyone forgets that he was a Buffalo Bill and not just a criminal.
He was a good guy.
Football-wise.
He's the best running back in history.
In Buffalo Bills.
Oh no, second best in history.
Yeah, Thurman Thomas.
No, not.
Are you talking about NFL history?
NFL history, yeah, second best.
No.
Yeah.
O.J. Simpson is not even in top 5 or top 10. You have number 1.
Jim Brown.
Okay.
You're kidding,
okay.
Right? He might be the best player in league history.
Okay, number 1, Jim Brown. Number 2, I think Barry Sanders.
Oh,
3,
nah.
yes. 3, Walter Payton, alright?
Don't even say Gale Sayers.
I'm going to say Gale Sayers because he deserves his props.
Well, I got right here, I got this whole, we're in my studio and it's decked out with Bill stuff.
Yeah, Thurman Thomas, we get it.
Thurman Thomas.
He's not in this.
I'd prefer him over Gale Sayers.
Emmett Smith, who just happens to be the all-time rushing leader in history.
That's debatable.
No, it's a stat. No. Okay, well, let's get back to fantasy football.
So you're telling me that Gale Sayers is better than O.J. Simpson and Thurman Thomas?
Not better than Thurman, but better than O.J., yes.
No, O.J.'s better than both.
If Gale Sayers stays healthy, he's ahead of Walter Payton in statistics. Just my opinion.
If O.J. wasn't...
More people need to know who Gale Sayers was.
If O.J. wasn't falsely accused, he would have been the best running back in history. Not saying that he isn't. He's number 2.
Why are you defending O.J. so
I like him.
Don't try to make O.J. work.
Well, clearly it was before my time.
Yeah.
But...
Alright. Yeah. It is. So let's go to fantasy football, which is in our time. Kind of cheesy, but
yes.
Give me your number 10 tight end for fantasy football.
I'm gonna go with Jared Cook. Tight end. Did he move from Tennessee? I think he did.
Yes, he is now in St. Louis.
So, I mean, I think that's helped him out more. There's not as many weapons down there. I mean, both teams aren't the best receiving cores, but Tavon Austin is there. But there's no other tight ends to take the job away from him. Bradford I'd prefer over Locker probably, so he's got a better QB, and I think he's going to have a solid, low, I mean, it depends, because if you wait on tight end, I mean, Cook's not a bad starter.
Yeah, my number 10, I mean, Jared Cook's a really good player, I just want to see more consistency out of him. My number 10 is Martellus Bennett, now from the New York Giants over to the Chicago Bears. I think he's a really good sleeper, in my opinion. I mean, really, when you look at obviously where he was in Dallas, he was a backup for Witten, and he wasn't really very productive because he didn't get enough snaps. Then what he did in New York last year was really good. He had over 6 touchdowns, I believe it was 7 touchdowns to be exact.
Who?
Martellus Bennett, I'm not sure. I know, but he was a good red zone target, and the Bears need a good, consistent catching tight end. They haven't really had one in quite some time. Well, ever since Greg Olsen left, Kellen Davis is just a pure blocking tight end, so they needed a guy that can go over the middle, maybe help Jay Cutler out. I think Martellus Bennett's really going to get a lot of receptions. Touchdowns.
Last season he had 5 touchdowns and 626 yards.
Which is really good for a first-year starter. So, and Chicago, I think they could really use him they have Brandon Marshall, and I'd like to see how Alshon Jeffries produces, but I think Bennett's going to get a lot of receptions this year, and I think if you want to wait a long time to get a tight end, I think he could be a number 1, but I think he's a really good backup if you're keeping 2 tight ends on your roster.
Well, do you usually keep 2 tight ends?
I do. I do because I wait on tight end, so when I wait on tight end, I want to get a consistent, proven backup because when you wait longer, the value tends to go down.
Well, how many bench spots are in our league? I don't know exactly.
5.
something like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I feel a backup tight end is more important than a sixth running back.
Yeah, and you
who's
could
never
probably
gonna
get a
see the
really
field.
good running back in waivers anyway instead of keeping one on your waivers.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of keeping one on your bench.
Well, it depends, because if I have Jimmy Graham or someone,
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's number one or
Yeah,
anything.
then you can wait. Then you don't really have
Yeah.
to get. You can find one in the waivers free agency, I think.
Yeah.
But then if you have someone like Dennis Pitta, though, you want to make sure you have a good backup because you don't know how consistent Pitta's going to be, or just saying Pitta, or Kyle Rudolph, or just naming off guys that you might be able to find in the later rounds.
All right. So my number 9. So speaking of Martellus Bennett of the Giants, I got the Giants' new tight end Brandon Myers. He previously played for the Oakland Raiders. He had an all-right season. He was a waiver pickup last year, and I think he could be that again. If not, I think he is a good starter. Last year I don't know how he did, but I like him. The Giants.
600 yards. So.
The Giants tend to give the ball to the tight end a lot. Like Louis just said with Bennett, he had over 600 yards, and they had Ballard 2 years ago. He had he had a good amount of yards. And then Shockey, the whole era, has been there too. So I like Myers at 9.
Yeah, I have Brandon Myers at I have him at 8. My number 9 guy is Antonio Gates from the Chargers, and I would have him higher, but the injury concerns have been there for Gates in most of his career. Last year he did play most of his games, but I like to see some more consistency out of him so he can be back to where he was a couple years ago, where he was the top tight end. I think he's a low end number 1 if you're going to wait for a guy. And I think this year the Chargers, they still don't have a lot of weapons to offer, so Rivers is still going to be looking for Gates. So the receptions are going to be there, and definitely red zone carries, red zone targets, because I don't think Ryan Matthews will be able to carry the load there. They don't really have a big red zone running back. They have Danny Woodhead and Ryan Matthews at the helm, so they're probably going to be passing more. And I mean, they have a young guy in Keenan Allen that they hope that develop, but normally rookie receivers tend to struggle. So I think Gates is definitely going to be much improved this year. And I think if you want to wait, I think he's a good starter. But again, you want to have insurance because of the injuries and take a solid backup.
Oh yeah. All right, so why don't you just talk about Myers now, number 8?
All right, my number 8 is, like you said, it's Brandon Myers from the Giants, and like you said, he really shined in Oakland last year, and I think he's a number 1 tight end. I mean, New York, Eli Manning, he does have Victor Cruz and Hakeem Nicks, but like you said, they use Bennett a lot.
Yeah, Bennett had 806 yards last year for the Raiders.
Oh, Myers did?
Yeah.
Wow.
What did I say? I say Bennett?
Yeah,
I meant Myers.
Okay, so yeah, they used him more than I actually noticed. I thought he only had like about 600 yards. So, and I think, like you said, New York's going to use their tight end. And I think, he's a big body. He can help blocking, which doesn't really help in fantasy, but it'll help him stay on the field more on all 3 downs. And I mean, he's a consistent tight end last year in a bad offense. So I think you can definitely rely on him as a number 1 tight end. But again, this is if you want to stack up other positions, because some of the guys higher here are going to go early now that the tight end is really thin.
All right. My number 8 is Owen Daniels. I like Owen Daniels last year. I've had him a few years. I had him, I think, 2 years back. I mean, he's still, with Andre Johnson there, and now DeAndre Hopkins. How do you say it? Schwab?
I don't like Schwab. I feel like I'm saying Cotton Schwab.
Matt Schaub. He throws the ball to him. I remember watching, because I didn't watch most Texans games, but I remember seeing Daniels torch the Jets last year. That's the Jets. I don't know if that's a good accomplishment, but I mean,
they have a good secondary.
Yeah, I like Owen Daniels. Number 8.
My number 7 is Kyle Rudolph for the Minnesota Vikings. Last year he had 9 touchdowns and was really the go-to guy after Percy Harvin went down for Christian Ponder in that Vikings offense. Obviously, besides Adrian Peterson, who we all know what he did. I think Kyle Rudolph is going to continue to improve this year, but I like to see the yards go up a little bit more, meaning more receptions outside of the red zone. But he's definitely a red zone target when they're not giving the ball to Peterson. I think he's a number 1 guy, but again, I think for Rudolph, you might want some insurance because he's still think he's a little bit unproven. Last year was his breakout year, and I'd like to see the consistency. Looking at his points per game last year, looking at ESPN scoring, standard scoring, he was somewhat just consistent, but sometimes he was on and off. He would have maybe a 7 to 10 point game and then a 3-point game. So with him, you want to be careful that you have a viable backup because the consistency is somewhat of a concern. But I really like Kyle Rudolph as a number 1 tight end this year.
Yeah, my number 7 is also Kyle Rudolph. I mean, I don't know if you could say this is a viable resource, but he lit up the Pro Bowl last year.
I was actually thinking that too. No, yeah, I mean, but it showed what he can do, I guess.
Yeah, so he's a pretty good guy now. Because really, well, now they have Greg Jennings and Cordell Patterson up in Minnesota, but he's still gonna be looked at by Ponder. So yeah, I think 7's a good spot for him. He's definitely a starter.
Yeah. So number 6 in the tight ends for me is Dennis Pitta for the Baltimore Ravens, starter. Now that Anquan Boldin's gone, I think he's definitely the red zone guy. I mean, last year he did have his touchdowns went up as he was the premier tight end. I mean, obviously they still do have Dixon there, their backup tight end, who will take away some of the receptions. But I really like with Anquan Boldin being gone, and Joe Falco I think is really going to rely on Pitta this year. I think he's a number 1 tight end, but again, I mean, it's kind of a 1 year. I want to see more of what he can do than just 1 year, and I think this year he's one of the premier guys. You do still have Torrey Smith and Jacoby Jones, but I think they're more deep vertical threats more than complete receivers. I think Dennis Pitta is really going to lead that team in receptions, and over the middle, he's a really good catcher and catch after the run after the catch. He'll definitely help you a lot too in scoring.
Yeah, I also have Dennis Pitta there, even though I'm already I kind of have a sour tooth for him. Is that a phrase?
Yes, it is. I like it.
Well,
it's new. I haven't heard it in a while.
I had him last year in our league, and I picked him up because Jermichael Finley just sucked, and I had him.
Yeah.
He just had a off year. I mean, what do you think of Finley? Because he's not in my top 10. He's not in my top 10.
I don't. I mean, I think we've seen enough in the past couple of years that you can't rely on Finley as a number 1 guy. There's just too many weapons to me, and I don't know. I just don't. I mean, there's injuries with Finley. I'm not a big fan of Finley personally.
Yeah.
I know you're not either.
Yeah, and not for last year. So I had Pitta. He got me 8 points week 1. I'm like, all right. Next week he gets me 0. The week after that, 1. So that was the year for them. So that's all I really paid close attention to Pitta. But so that shows to me inconsistency. But here's where you could say is the drop off for tight ends, because that's the thing about these tight ends, and that's the most different thing about every position. There's a huge drop between the top like 4 or 5 guys from the other guys. From the like 6 through 10 and all them. But yeah, I can agree with you for Pitta at 6.
Yeah, that's a good point. So my number 5 is Vernon Davis from the San Francisco 49ers. Michael Crabtree tearing his Achilles tendon is a big loss for them, but they do still have Anquan Boldin, who is like I said before with Pitta, and he showed last year in the playoffs is a really good red zone guy. So it does show some concern for Vernon Davis, but what Kaepernick and Vernon Davis did last year in the playoffs was pretty spectacular. I think that's what you want to hope that goes into the season. Now what happened in the regular season, where really Kaepernick wasn't looking to him. He was more preferring the Crabtree or Delaney Walker route. I think Vernon Davis is the number 1 guy this year, fastest tight end in the league. He's going to get a lot of receptions with Crabtree down. And I think the touchdowns and receptions are definitely going to go up this year. Last year was a very disappointing year for Davis.
Yeah, I know. I also had Davis at number 5. I think we might agree.
Yeah, we probably have.
Here,
I mean, maybe.
Here, take a look.
Yes, we do.
Well, I guess we have the top.
So then you can go next for number 4.
Sure. Yeah. So Vernon Davis. Let me pull up his fantasy stuff. All right, never mind. But I mean, he did alright at the beginning, and then he just went on like a 9-game stretch where he was just terrible. That's why that's the thing about him. I mean, like you said, Kaepernick. When Kaepernick came in, he looked a little bit better, but still, and he was 15th among tight ends for points last year, and now with Aaron Hernandez out of the way, so that'll be more like 14. So there's still 13 guys ahead of him who you can go for, but I do think he can bounce back and have a good year. I mean, Kaepernick, I liked Davis better with Kaepernick than I did with Alex Smith.
Really?
I think so.
I mean, I disagree because, I mean, when you look at the receptions, they dramatically went down after that Chicago game. I mean, that's just my opinion. I obviously, but then when you look in the playoffs, what Kaepernick did with them, much more spectacular than what it was with Alex Smith. But Alex Smith is kind of a guy that doesn't really use his vertical receivers a lot. So I mean that it is a good point. You could go either way, but I think definitely with the relationship with Kaepernick and Vernon Davis did develop over the season. And I think you're right though that I think it will end up being better than what it was with Alex Smith. But last year I just didn't see it in the regular season, but the playoffs, and I agree in the sense that this year they'll definitely be a better pairing than they were.
Yeah, I'll pull up Vernon Davis see what the contrast was. When did Cap come in? Week 10, I think.
Against Chicago Monday night. I mean that game he had a big game, and then after that it just didn't seem to be clicking. I don't know. That's off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure, because
Yeah.
tight end's tough though. So I mean, you can't really expect much from the later players. But Vernon's a good player.
All right,
Let's
so
see.
here it is. Week 1, 5 yards. 2, 27. 3, 10.
Oh God,
4,
never.
4 yards.
Yeah, but that wasn't week 1.
Is it?
This is week 1.
Ah, wait. You sure about that?
Yes.
Are you 100%?
They faced Green Bay week 1. Yep.
Oh yeah, they did.
September.
All right, so 43 yards week 1, 73 week 2, 53 week 3.
And they had a touchdown in every one of those games.
Yeah. 2 and 28 in week 5. That is 106 against the Bills. So what?
I know you're a Bills fan.
All right, so the Bears, he came in 83, and he had 0, but it doesn't even look like did he even play?
Yes, he played.
So wow. So 15. Yeah, I guess not, but
But he just didn't have a good year in general, though. It's not that it was just with Kaepernick, because even with Alex Smith, if you look back the year before, he was posting much bigger numbers than he was. So, either way, I think you're right though.
Yeah, I like him with Kaepernick too. I mean, cause I think Kaepernick's definitely a better QB.
And you want to look at what they did in the playoffs. That's what you're going to look at. That's why I think you're right in that sense, is because their chemistry really developed, I think, over time in the playoffs. And I think that's going to grow this year with Crabtree being down. That was Kaepernick's top target, and with Delaney Walker being gone, there's not as much to choose from as there was last year for Kaepernick.
Yeah, I agree with that. So now, wait, I think I can pull here. Here's the playoffs right here. So
much better than I
thought. Some of the games are over 100, so 100 yards. If I think that's playoffs. Yeah, he had a 100-yard game in the Super Bowl.
And in the NFC Championship game.
So he came up when he needed. So yeah, I like him next year.
Yeah, I definitely think he's a viable number 1. All right, so give our number 4.
Our number 4, both of us, is Tony Gonzalez. I like Gonzalez. He was great last year. I think he came in number 2 for amongst tight ends, receiving wise, because he's a touchdown machine. If I can remember, he's a very good. He's a red zone threat. That's where Matt Ryan likes to throw it. They have the best receiving core in the game.
I agree. I mean, I think it's between them and Denver, but what Denver doesn't have that Atlanta has is a tight end like Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, he had 930 yards last year and 8 touchdowns, and he's doing this, and he's been in the league for 17 years already. So he's 37 years old. It's ridiculous that he can still do this. But yeah, he's still going to be a very good number 1.
Yeah, I like Tony Gonzalez definitely. Thank God that he came back for another year, because without him too, you would have. I mean, it would be much thinner at tight end. But I agree with you. The red zone targets are there. Matt Ryan relies on him a lot. So I think he's definitely a number 1 guy, and he's one of the more consistent guys. I think you should really target earlier than most tight ends, because he's a veteran, like you said, probably the best tight end of all time in my opinion. And I think he's definitely a number 1 guy that you can rely on for both yards, receptions, especially if you're in a PPR league. I think he's good because he does average a lot of receptions per game. I mean, obviously the ball has to go around to all the receivers.
Well, if it's a PPR league, that's gonna make Jason Witten.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that brings it to our number 3.
Jason Witten's number 3. You go first.
All right, like you said, I mean, Jason Witten's most receptions in Cowboys history as for a tight end last year was incredible. I remember the one game in New York, he had 20 receptions in a game. So that's what you can rely on for Jason Witten. Jason Witten's the 3rd best to me, and I think with Gronkowski hurt, if Gronkowski doesn't come back, Witten might be the 2nd best in the league, and Tony Romo really relies on him.
Yeah, I like Witten. He was the only tight end last year with 1,000 yards. To break 1,000 yards. Last year with 1,039. But the thing is, 3 touchdowns last year. So could you imagine if he had 8 like Gonzalez? That would bump up.
Isn't he even the best tight end? No, Jimmy Graham's still not statistically right.
So statistically, Graham was more because he had more touchdowns.
Right.
I don't know exactly how many, but
no, I'm saying if like he had 9 touchdowns.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. Because that'd be incredible.
Yeah, I can check right now, but I think that Graham had less yards. I know that.
Much more touchdowns.
But yeah, more touchdowns.
I think it was like by 7 or 8. Like 6 or 7.
He had 9.
Yeah. So that's 6 more.
So if they both had 9, yeah, he'd be more.
Wow. So I mean, yeah, the consistency is there for Witten. That's what I like. And I mean, maybe it's not as flashy because if he doesn't get the receptions in a game, you hope for a touchdown. But I definitely think that the touchdowns will go up this year.
Hmm.
With Miles Austin, the injuries, I think, and DeMarco Murray being hurt, I think it's really going to be him and Des Bryant taking the touchdowns in that offense.
Yep, I agree. So now number two, I mean, there's obviously the 5 surgeries you have to worry about over the offseason, 4 on the forearm and 1 on the back, but we still got him up here. Rob Gronkowski. I mean, he's just so good. He's so dominant when he's healthy. That's what makes him. He'd be number one for me probably if he was healthy. If he was like as healthy as Jimmy Graham and like Jason Witten as consistent, he could be number one because Graham is very consistent. Uh, but Gronkowski's just such a breakout threat and all that. He's so good. I mean, do you think he's gonna go down now without Hernandez? Do you think Hernandez actually helped him?
No, I honestly think that this year if he could stay healthy, I would put him at number one. Agreed with you because of the lack of weapons.
Yeah.
Because you can't. I mean, you're not gonna double cover. I don't think you're putting your best guy on Rob Gronkowski in my opinion.
No.
Because he's a tight end. But
you gotta put like a linebacker and a safety.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I think he's gonna improve even more this year, and I think the touchdowns are gonna go even. I think the touchdowns are gonna stay the same because he's always gonna be a red zone threat.
Yep.
But I think the yards, if he can stay healthy this year, is what's really gonna be the deciding factor between him and Graham. And I think it's gonna improve a lot this year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Depends because we don't know if he's gonna be healthy.
Yeah, that's the one issue that's between him and Graham is he can't stay healthy. It seems.
Yeah, well, Stefania Bell for ESPN. I mean, she always handles all those injuries and stuff. And she said it doesn't look good for him to be. It's very questionable if he's going to be there week 1, which I mean that's gonna be risky to take him because I'd like to know if he's going to be completely healthy week 1. But if he's there in like the 3rd round, I'll take him.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
me
second
too.
round's a little too early. Yeah, he had 11 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, so I mean that's a lot. I mean, just based on my strategies, I probably wouldn't take a tight end in the 2nd round. Well, I would if it was Graham, but not Gronkowski.
No, yeah, I agree with that.
All right. So let's do the number 1 fantasy tight end is Jimmy Graham from the New Orleans Saints. Like you said, he had 9 touchdowns last year. The top tight end in fantasy football. Drew Brees obviously relies on him, and I don't think there's any questioning if he's healthy and Gronkowski's not that he's the number 1 tight end.
Oh yeah, you can't really argue that. I mean, I really like Graham. He's like a big receiver basically. I mean that's the thing.
Oh, he's got the speed, yeah.
He's not the. I don't know what he ran. Oh yeah, he ran a 4.5. That's got to be pretty
Yeah.
good among tight ends. So
Yeah.
he's 6'7", so he's not the best blocking tight end, and that might be why he missed the top 100 players, which makes no sense because he was 17th.
Yeah, I don't know how
his blocking didn't get worse from the year before, but I don't know how that happened. But Graham, he's such a good receiver. Was only 18 yards away from, so basically 1 reception away from 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah.
A year before he had 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. So
incredible. How do you go from the 18th, but I think he was ranked 18th last year to not being on the list?
Well,
not fantasy wise, but that's just accurate.
I mean, sure he had 300 less yards and 2 less touchdowns, but I mean, if you're a tight end, it's going to be hard to get 99 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 11 touchdowns every year.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like I mean they do have some good weapons there with Colston. Colston's probably their other viable biggest threat, receiving threat, and then Darren Sproles. So I think Drew Brees relies on him a ton. And that's what you got to keep in mind.
I also like Lance Moore.
Yeah, I like Lance more, but I think in the red zone they do not. I mean, they're not going to use Darren Sproles running the football in the red zone, and they're really. I don't really think. I mean, they utilize Mark Ingram enough, and that's why I think Jimmy Graham goes up even higher. Is the running game is not really a big threat in New Orleans, so I think he's definitely the number 1 tight end based on that, and his situation in New Orleans is a good one for people that want him as fantasy.
Well, in Graham's 3 years in the NFL, he has over 2,500 yards and 25 touchdowns, and that's only 2 years being the starter.
Exactly. So his stats show for what he is, and he's definitely the top tight end. I mean, it is arguable if Gronkowski's but you can definitely rely on him no matter what. The most consistent tight end in fantasy football is right now.
All right. So before we end this up, give a 1 sleeper for tight ends or 1 guy you like.
All right, I'm gonna do one that's not on my list, and you already well, I would say that this is a guy. It's more of a deep sleeper. Zach Ertz for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I like him There is three tight ends there with James Casey, Brent Selleck, and him. But Chip Kelly really utilizes his tight ends like he did in Oregon. I think Zach Ertz really resembles someone like Jimmy Graham with the speed and the size. And I think he's definitely going to show why. I think he's definitely going to unseat Selleck as a starter because he's going to show that he can block and receive. And I definitely think if it depends on who's the starter, but I think if Nick Foles or Matt Barkley is the starter, I think you're going to see a lot of Zach Ertz this year. Based on they use a tight end more than Michael Vick does, hence why Brent Selleck's statistics have really gone down since Donovan McNabb was the starter in 2009. Zach Ertz is a deep sleeper in my opinion. I think you should really pursue him in the later rounds if you again want to wait on tight end. I think Zach Ertz is a good waiver wire pickup for when he starts picking up the receptions.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a guy who's on my list actually, and that's gonna be Brandon Myers of the New York Giants. I think me and you both like him,
Oh yeah.
but I don't think everyone's gonna know that the Giants or how they throw the ball to the tight ends and stuff. Last year the Giants were 12th among passing yards for the league, and I think if people realize how much the Giants threw to the tight ends and stuff, I think he's gonna have a big year. I think in a lot of leagues you can get him off the waivers.
Yeah, I would probably, yeah, most likely he will be. But I mean, he's a good sleeper, and I agree with you. I think people don't realize that New York's going to use him. Obviously, probably most people are saying, yeah, they have Victor Cruz and Hakeem Nicks and David Wilson, but yeah, you got to look out for Brandon Myers. I think he's going to be a really good tight end this year, and those are the guys you got to look out for because of
Yeah.
how thin it is. You got to look deeper into it than just the top four guys, because odds are there's more than four teams in a fantasy league, so you're not going to get all four. Most likely, you're not going to get one of the four if you're going to wait. So Brandon Myers is a good guy. I agree with you.
Unless you're in a league that only has 4 people, because that's the least amount of people you can have for a league.
Ugh, 4-team league, 2-on-2 divisions, or no? You have one division.
Yeah. Well, no. There's this. I like scoring where it's. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called like Roto or something. No, it's Rotisserie, where it's just most at the end. It's just like one pool, and whoever has the most fantasy points at the end of the year wins.
All right, that's cool. So that's going to do it for today's Get Real Football Experts Fantasy Focus Edition Top 10 Tight Ends. Make sure to check us out, youtube.com/NFL Experts. Subscribe to us. Follow me at DB Sports like Dave, at Dave Crest Sports. Check out our articles at GetRealFootball.com. Check out my blog, EaglesSportsTalk.blogspot.com. We'll be featuring Julian Vanderbilt, the offensive guard, and then check out Dave's podcast in his Bills blog at RealBillsNow.blogspot.com, where they will be having.
We'll be having the punter on tomorrow, but we're gonna linebacker next week and stuff. So lots of good stuff.
That's all good stuff. Training camp's coming up in a couple of weeks, and that's gonna do it. Thanks, football fans.
Yeah. Sorry to ruin your momentum, but we're gonna take like a 2-week break. Due to some personal reasons.
I'm going on vacation.
So we're gonna have a few more videos up. We're gonna have our new Wheel of Experts.
By the way, it was a good one. You better go check that one out.
Yeah, it was good.
That was like you said, that was a mouthful.
Yes, you'll see that one and Duel and Discuss, which is already up right now. That's where we play Madden, discuss NFL topics, and we'll have one more podcast. So take it away, Lou.
All right, thanks, football fans. It's been real.